Hey guys, I'm an American married to a French man from France, and we're living here in Tulsa, Oklahoma with our 4 dogs and 1 cat. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the biggest culture shocks that I experienced, and I mainly observed these things directly through my husband or through family or through the extended family and friends. And of course, from some of my travels to France, I was able to observe some of the cultural differences. So first up, let's talk about the homes in France and how they're so much more different from the homes here in the US. The houses in France are so much older, but that is to be expected. France is an old country and has existed for many hundred years before the US ever existed. Many of the structures, they're still in really good condition. The construction materials are so natural and strong, like rock or stone. So these structures, they hold up really well over time. They can last hundreds of years, up to thousands of years. I noticed as well that there is this big contrast between modern and old in France. For example, in some of the hotels and homes, I noticed in the bathroom specifically, there are these towel warmers. I've never seen one here in the US. It's heated, so you turn it on kind of like a radiator, but it's just for towels. This little modern touch inside of ancient or very old homes was a big culture shock to me and something that I love. I wish that this was something that was more common in the US. It's such a functional little detail, and now I want one in my own house. Aesthetically, French homes also tend to feel more warm and intentional to me. There's more use of natural materials and attention to the landscaping that really adds to the overall charm. I honestly expected every home in France to have a bidet. Well, because bidet is a French word, and I believe it was invented in France, I noticed that it actually wasn't very common. I only saw a bidet like once or twice in a very old hotel, but they weren't common in French homes at all. Personally, I love bidets, and I think that they should be standard in every home and in every country because they're just more hygienic. In the US, I've honestly never seen a bidet just built into a home, but I do know that you can order them on Amazon or online and install them on your toilet. On my Filipino side, however, it is very common to use what we call a tabo, a little handheld bucket. And while this isn't high-tech or anything, it does get the job done. This is a big one. Why don't French people like air conditioning? Most French homes have an air conditioner, but they don't tend to like using it. Americans love their air conditioning and they can't live without it, but the French prefer to use it minimally. They'd much prefer to open the windows even in the hottest part of the summer and let the air circulate naturally. To them, 70-degree weather or around 20 degrees Celsius weather is perfect and comfortable even for sleeping. To me, this feels pretty warm. My husband was the same at first. He much preferred to keep the AC off. Over time, he learned that air conditioning here is essential. Now that we live in Oklahoma, where summers are brutally hot, he has fully adapted and even relies on the air conditioning. And interestingly, I've kind of gone the other way. I often catch myself wanting to turn the air conditioning off when it gets too cold, so we've kind of met in the middle. If you hear a lot of background noise, it's because my husband's doing some construction in the garage. Most people in France seem to opt out of using a dryer. Instead, they like to line dry or dry their clothes on a rack and let it sun dry. At first, I thought this was an unnecessary and time-consuming habit, but now I actually prefer it. It's gentler on clothes, saves time, and it's hygienic to have the sun dry your clothes with the UV rays. I still prefer to use my drying machine for bulky or bigger items like towels or bed sheets, but for everything else, I like to line dry my clothes outside under the sun. I've definitely ruined several sweaters and delicate clothes, so I completely understand why French people prefer not to use the dryer at all. All right, now next up is food culture. Food is a big deal in France, and I love that because I'm a foodie and I love to eat. and I love to cook, and I love to bake. So I feel that I really connect with the French when it comes to food. But there were a lot of things that really surprised me or even shocked me about French food culture. The first thing that really jumped out was how the French eat. First of all, most French people use utensils for everything. Even foods that Americans don't use utensils for, like burgers or pizza or fries, the French do use fork and knife for those things. I guess we would kind of seem a little bit uncivilized to the French when it comes to eating certain foods with our hands, but this is something that is so normal and comfortable for us here in the US. My background is Filipino and African American. I feel like in my cultures, it's more of a norm to explore cuisines from other cultures. So I did grow up eating different kinds of foods like Korean food, Chinese food, Hawaiian food. I mean, of course, Filipino food, African American food, you know, soul food. We also love Indian food. My family probably tried a different cuisine once a week. But the French tend to be more loyal to their cuisine, and they don't really like to veer away from the tradition. Cheese, bread, meat, you know, saucisson, fromage, baguettes, of course. They have to have baguettes every day, it seems. At least my husband does. A lot of French people don't really like go out to eat that much, or they don't go out to restaurants. The norm is to stay home and cook a meal and prepare the meal together at home rather than going out. Oftentimes when I wanted to eat something and I had a craving for it, then I would get on the Uber Eats app and I would order it. My husband would always tell me, why don't you just look up the recipe and make it yourself? To me, that was a big culture shock because why? Why would I do that when I can just order it? But anyways, after marrying him, I definitely did grow to like learn to just look up recipes and make different things myself, like baguettes. Now it's just something that is more common in our house. I also noticed that their dinner times are usually later. So here in the US, people typically eat dinner at like 6 p.m. But in France, their dinner time is 8 o'clock p.m. or even later. And I also found out that in countries outside of France, like in Spain, the dinner time is even later, like 10 p.m. or even 11 p.m., which is way too late for me. The next thing that I observed is that the French tend to be pessimistic. Now, I don't mean this in a negative or bad way, but the French just tend to be a lot more realistic or even pessimistic than Americans. Americans tend to be more optimistic or even idealistic than their French counterparts. You can really see this clearly in movies and TV. A lot of French films have heavier storylines or more bittersweet endings, or even sometimes just sad endings. Sometimes their endings, they just end and there's no resolve. It just ends and then you're left like kind of disappointed. American film tends to have this nicely wrapped, happy ending that works in favor for the protagonist. Those are just a few of the unusual culture shocks that I've experienced. If you're interested in French culture, or if you like to travel and you've spent some time in France, I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you observed any of these culture shocks as well? And if you are in a cross-cultural or interracial marriage or relationship, have you ever observed any culture shocks? Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. I'd love to take you on this journey with me as I grow my YouTube channel with my husband. We are called the French American Fam. Please stay tuned and keep an eye on any new videos. Bye!